COVID 2020 was an experience that required compassion, endurance, and a spot of fun when you could. My dad at the time was 84 years old, quite independent, still driving and socialising weekly at Te Aotearoa ko tahitanga day. He would go for rides most days, but on a busy day, probably twice, visiting the local dairy, sneak a packet of Macintoshes or can of Fizzy, as those particular items were forbidden in our household due to his diabetes type 3. But what could you do? Block his vehicle? Well, that's exactly what I had to do during COVID. What an experience. The lead up to the first lockdown, we found that there was plenty of information and detail around the seriousness of this new virus, and most importantly, in particular, how that was going to impact and harm our mokopuna, our kaumātua, and our rerehi. That scared my family and I a little because we needed to seriously think about how we were going to manage ourselves and manage my dad during the lockdown, and how we were going to protect him and his health and well-being, because we still had to go out into the community to get your essentials. So coming back into the home, we need to really seriously think about protecting him. Why was that so important? Well, my dad is our whakapapa, and we needed to protect that. He is the fourth. We've got 4 generations in our whānau, and he's probably one of the very few that is left in his generation. And I feel that he has so much more to offer, even at the time being 84, he's 86 now. He's still vibrant, still with us, still, coherent. So it was really important to protect our whakapapa, and that was our dad. 3 days into the lockdown, that's when the challenges started to appear. So those challenges were my dad's independence being taken away from him, and then having to communicate the reason as to why it was important for him to stay home. That was a struggle, because at the age of 84, it's like telling, someone that already has been through decades of life that all of a sudden you can't go and do something. My dad one day tried to sneak out of their house, jumped into his vehicle, and all I could hear was this beeping of the car horn. And I thought, what the heck is that? So and it was quite loud and continuous. So I went outside to pop my head outside, and here's my dad in his car going, and he's got the window down. He says, "You need to move the van." And I stood there for a moment and I thought, oh my goodness, okay, I need to tell my dad, well, no, you can't go anywhere because we're in lockdown. I had to be the bad person, to give this message to my dad. And I felt really terrible because, he was so used to doing what he wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, just overnight, it had been taken away from him. So I had to become quite firm, and I said to my dad, you can't go anywhere. And my goodness, the looks that he gave me, I was thinking, uh-oh, I'm really in trouble. Compassion hidden for me. So what I mean by that is that I went and got him all his foods he loves and wanted, whether it was good for his diabetes or not. I thought, no, I'm just going to have to bite the bullet here. So compassion for my dad set in, and I needed to just step a little bit back and just look at the bigger picture, and him having to stay home while I needed to give and take also. He then turned around and kept saying to us, so how many days left do we have to be locked out? So that was the next challenge. Trying to keep him entertained was a challenge. What I needed to do is do some online Zoom catch-ups with the whānau, with my siblings, his mokopuna. If I reflect back on COVID lockdown for my dad and my whānau, for it to be a little bit more unchallenging for my dad, I do think we might have to look at some social interaction, online presence with, like kotahitanga. I know it was face to face, but we might have been able to do something online, or just a chat, cup of tea chat, where you get all kaumātua, together online, having a cup of tea. Even if they're not saying anything, at least they can sort of see one another, or have more of the support services, come around a little bit more frequently. Just something like that to sort of keep them well, their mind, their tinanga, during this whole COVID pandemic. So that's my story. That's my story.